America, welcome back inside the Business Pulse, brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net. Joined by Rod Martin, Dean Owen, and now the founder and CEO of Red Balloon. Redballoon.work is where you can find him online. It's Andrew Krapachetz. Welcome into the program, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. Happy Wednesday to everybody.
Yeah, or whenever you're watching it, maybe a Friday, but it's the day after is what I like to call it, the day after the election.
Kidding.
And the election, well, as they say, it was a blue wave, and President Trump has called it a gift. I'm curious what things look like in the job market, what you're seeing, Andrew.
Well, employers generally are going to vote with their feet, right? And we already saw during COVID, during the post-COVID kind of reaction, you saw this great migration that happened all over the U.S. So you saw a lot of businesses that were moving, but also job seekers that were moving. And also Red Balloon has this unique perspective because I have millions of job seekers and thousands of employers, and they're looking to find each other, right? Okay, cool. Well, I can start to look at interesting things like, where are the highest proportion of job seekers who are looking for remote work or an opportunity to move? More and more conservatives, particularly, are willing to move for the right job. And there are a lot of people in New York right now who are saying that not only are they looking for remote work, but they would actually be open to a relocation if they're in New York City, if there's a job in Florida or Texas or somewhere other than New York City. So it's going to be really interesting to watch how this great migration works. And we saw it in 2021, where you actually looked at the net worth of the people, or the annual income of the people leaving New York and moving into Florida was about $19 billion. So $19 billion of annual earnings left New York in just 1 year to go down to the beautiful state of Florida. And that was just that one state-to-state move. And that's going to tell you a lot about the tax base, about the ability for those states and those cities to be able to balance their budget. Because economics, like, it's so fun for, the mayor and everybody to be like, I want to pay for all these things. Well, how do you pay for those things? You tax the people, and you tax the productive people. You don't tax the people who are sitting in a sleeping bag on the street. You tax the person who is busting tail to try and generate economic activity. Well, if that person generating economic activity is leaving your state or leaving your city, balancing that budget is going to get exponentially more difficult. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to watch, but the job market is already starting to make some moves almost immediately. And we've seen it for the last month because people saw Mamdani on his way to a victory, where job seekers are saying, I've got to get out of here. We also saw, Morgan Stanley opened up 800,000 square feet of office space in Texas because they were shutting down some of their office space in New York. So the market is going to vote. It's not like a communist country where you can actually, East Germany, hold everyone in. People are allowed to move. And so when the market's allowed to vote like that, I think New York's in for some rough times.
And the great state of Florida, I don't know if Mr. Governor DeSantis was in jest or not with this, but he's like, maybe we put a tariff up for people moving from New York City to the state of Florida, and that's where Rod resides. And Rod, Andrew, that's great insight there. And I'd love to keep updated with you on a weekly basis on what you're seeing. And I know there's going to probably be a lot of resignations of police firefighters that are not going to stand for what happened in the election based upon the past. And you're never to forget, but people forgot. So we'll see how that all plays out. But Rod, your thoughts on what you feel after last night's election?
Well, of course, the governor's comment was in jest because it's unconstitutional to do that. But the principle is certainly spot on. We're going to pick up a ton of people from New York. There's no question. And it's not just the people. It's their money, as Andrew was describing, and not just their incomes. A lot of what happened during COVID was we got major financial firms moving some part, or in some cases, all of their operations to South Florida, which is just extraordinary. You just can't believe the difference in West Palm Beach and Brickell Avenue in Miami compared to pre-COVID. It's just extraordinary. That's all about to happen again, because you would be insane to keep your company in New York. If there's some reason to be there, sure. But the truth is, we're about to have the Texas Stock Exchange in Dallas. There's no good reason to have a nexus with the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ once the Texas Stock Exchange gets launched. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish, because both of those exchanges have just draconian ESG mandates on companies that are traded on those exchanges. And that has gotten a little bit better in the last year or so, but not that much. So you go to Texas, you don't get that. You come to Florida, with your hedge fund or whatever, you don't get any of those things. And you certainly don't have a mayor who was saying on Monday on X that capitalism is theft. And it could not be clearer in his speech last night. He means to soak the rich. He means to absolutely put them on the rack. And the problem is what Andrew said. He can't build a Berlin Wall around New York. He can't keep them in. So they're going to leave. And when they leave, he's going to scream bloody murder about how these dirty capitalists cheated the people of New York. No, you promised the people of New York something that was absolutely predictably going to fail. And that's exactly what we're going to watch. So, as I have said, I wouldn't overthink yesterday's so-called blue wave. We lost elections in a bunch of blue states. News at 11. Whoop-de-doo. Well, you look at Texas, and we overwhelmingly passed a measure to bar non-citizen voting. So where we win, we won. Where we don't do so well, we didn't do so well. Big shocker. But we do need to organize better for next year, or it could be ugly.
Question before you jump in, Dean, back to Andrew. In regards to remote working, are you starting to see the trend moving back into the office, or is it still the way it's going to be from now until whenever, with people just working remotely?
Yeah, I absolutely people want to go back in the office. And it's interesting because it's not just the companies. Like we've seen that trend over the last couple of years where companies are saying we need to see people back in the office, whether it's hybrid or whether it's full-time 5 days a week in the office. But what's really interesting is, we work on the, Red Balloon is kind of the center right. So we're working with a lot of conservatives, and we acquired militaryhire.com, which means we're working with a lot of veterans. And we are seeing more and more job seekers actually say they would prefer to be in the office because they realize that being with another human being is actually a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. And they would actually like to go in and get the collaboration, get the camaraderie, get the energy that comes from actually working with other human beings and not just being on a Zoom screen. And so that's actually, I think, one of the more interesting trends is people realize that the last couple of years working at home was not all it was cracked up to be. Now, there's some people that it is still the right thing, maybe for their family, because they wanted to get out of New York. They want to maintain that high-paying New York job, and they want to live in a beautiful place like Idaho, where I live. But actually, we're seeing more and more people say, man, I really want a co-work space. I want an office that I need to go to because it is healthy for me as a human being to see other human beings and actually interact. There's also an interesting rhythm that we've heard from job seekers, and we did a survey. There's an interesting rhythm when you actually get up, leave your home, go to the office, spend your 8 to 10 hours working with other people at the office, and then you get back in your car and you go back to home. It helps you actually kind of readjust, because the other trend that has been happening is when you work from home, you're working all the time because you're in your office all the time. And so people are looking for that rhythm of, I want to work with other human beings, and then I want to go back home. So that's the trend we're seeing. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely going that direction in a lot of places, not just with the businesses, but also with those job seekers.
Yeah, I'd just add a couple things from the employer's point of view. You lose esprit de corps. If they're not in the office, they are a bunch of disjointed individuals. You don't get any cross-pollination. You don't get any brilliant ideas over coffee. None of that happens. But also, you don't get to mentor your people. It just doesn't happen. They can pretend that will happen, but it doesn't. So from both an employer and an employee standpoint, you're losing a big part of why you work at a particular place. And the people who are local, the people who actually do come to work, are going to get the promotions. It's just inevitable.
Well, it's not just the promotions. It's also like if you need to lay someone off, are you going to lay off the person that you've seen 5 days a week, that you're collaborating with, innovating with, or the person who's on a Zoom screen and you don't actually know what they're doing all day? Well, that's actually not a hard decision.
And Dean, the tax implications of what's going to be taking place in New York City. I know you've been chomping at the bit to jump in here. Give us your thoughts.
Well, Florida and Texas in particular today, probably Tennessee and a few other states that tend to lean very red, are going to have a boom. It's going to be some massive positives for them. Kentucky is quickly moving towards a 0% income tax. They're trying to broaden the sales tax in order to get rid of the income tax, but every couple of years they drop it 0.5%, and probably by the end of the decade we'll be down. Kentucky's tax rate's now 3.5%, so the income tax rate's very favorable. It's not as nearly as favorable as Texas or Florida, but we're getting there. Our legislature's doing God's work. So, yeah, it's going to be a boom, not only for tax revenues, but think about electoral college, and think about the census and how many seats there are in the House and how they're appointed. We know the last census was basically widely broken at best, if not absolute fraud at worst. So we've heard the president talk about trying to do a mid-cycle census, but you start looking at 2030 and beyond, and how many more seats are going to be picked up by states like Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Texas, and how many are going to be lost by New York, California, Illinois. I know, Chuck, you're in Illinois. I've got a lot of business associates and even a business partner in Illinois, so I keep up with that pretty close. And you look at what's going on with those states now, just with their budget. Kentucky, for the longest time, we said we are incredibly glad Illinois exists. If not, we would have the worst funded teachers pension in America. So, from a tax standpoint, it's huge. I talk to people regularly who are moving out of Illinois. In particular, it's because I'm close to Illinois, and they're moving into Tennessee. They're moving sometimes into Kentucky, waiting for this income tax to go away. But and these are your high income people. Got a buddy who bought a home in Tennessee because of the Illinois state income tax was going to be over $1 million on a transaction he did when he liquidated his business. So you go to Tennessee, go down to Reelfoot Lake, spend $500,000, buy a lake house, make that your home, save. You spend $500,000 doing that, and you save $1 million in taxes. That's a no-brainer. So you do end up paying Tennessee sales tax, which is 9%. But so there's a lot of that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of transitions, and this is the storm before the calm. I believe these next few years are going to be the storm before the calm, where we eventually get this nation straightened back up. But we got so far backwards, and we got so far down the hole, and we went so far to the left and so far into the darkness. It's going to take more than a few weeks or a few months to get us into the light.
Absolutely. Andrew, your final thoughts on the job market, where people can find you, reach out to you, connect with you, and get involved with Red Balloon.
Yeah, I would just encourage people that you are a free agent. And a lot of people, when you look at what happened with the election, you feel like, man, what can I do? What is the thing that I can actually do? Well, you can go work for a company that actually respects your values, and you are proud to help build their bottom line and their top line. And I think that's what job seekers need to kind of keep in mind. And obviously, you come over to redballoon.work, you're going to find a pro-freedom business that actually respects your values, might even agree with your values, and will allow you to support your family, build your legacy, and don't feel trapped. Don't feel trapped if you're in the state of New York. Don't feel trapped by your job. Get off the couch. Don't watch Fox News anymore. Watch this show and do something. And if you do that, it's going to be incredibly liberating for you. You're a free agent. Go do stuff. That's my encouragement to everyone.
Love it. And where can people find you? Redballoon.work, correct?
Redballoon.work, or you can also go to militaryhire.com. It's now a wholly owned subsidiary of Red Balloon if you're a veteran and you want to find your next gig outside of the military.
Excellent. Dean, where can people find you online?
OwenCPA.com. Jump online, connect with my team. Let's start a relationship, and let's figure out a way to make sure we disinherit the government and not your kids.
Love it. And the Martin Report was delivered to my inbox this morning at 6:03 a.m. Rod Martin, where can people find you?
Come to rodmartin.org. We have tens of thousands of subscribers. We've got 278,000 followers over on Twitter. Obviously, something's going on. Daily geopolitical analysis that Fox Business calls absolutely phenomenal. rodmartin.org.
Love it. And if you're a Freedom Chamber member, make sure you're taking advantage of your benefits. The healthcare solution that's been constructed for you, the small business owner, awaits you. Talk to us. Give us a call. You can email me, chuck@freedomsquare.com. This is the Business Pulse, brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net.
My name is Dean Owen. I'm a CPA. I have a master's degree in taxation and a personal financial specialist. Tax laws are always changing. That's why you need a tax strategist, not just a tax preparer. You need someone to help you pay the least amount of tax legally. Because if your business and retirement tax planning is not tax smart, it's probably tax dumb. Let's fix that today. Call me. Let's disinherit the government and not your kids. That's what my team and I do. This is who we are. I'm a combat veteran, unapologetically American, unapologetically pro-God, pro-life, and pro-Second Amendment. If those are the values you seek in a tax and money advisor, call us. Again, let's disinherit the government and not your kids. We're not afraid to share our values, and we share them with you.